On this special Halloween episode, Scheimer calls a friend of his that has a story that fits this Halloween-themed episode. Mind you, this is a story based on first-hand accounts. Enjoy and happy Halloween.
Yes, I will. Started about 52 years ago. When I was a kid, we lived in a trailer, mobile home. My dad was a truck driver and was gone quite a bit. Well, to help pass the time, there was a next door neighbor lady who was my aunt. My uncle also drove for this company. So they'd be gone a lot. And Mom got to be pretty good friends with a bunch of the teenagers, 16, 17, up to 19-year-olds. So they would come hang out at the house. Well, Mom had got a set of books. And there was just 3 books to this volume, 3 volumes to this set. And one in particular, book number 2, was one that fascinated Mom. It had a lot of stuff to do with the supernatural.
Oh.
And one of them was, seances, levitating people, card reading. Well, I didn't know all this at the time, but I remember one night waking up, and in these older house trailers, your bedroom doors didn't open and close the way a traditional door did. They slid side to side on these rollers. And what woke me up was my door was slamming against the wall. It would go open and slam shut, then open and slam shut. And I remember waking up, looking out, seeing like dim lights out there, and I knew there was people out there because they were there when I went to bed. I knew everybody was there, but now it's like dark out there, and my door keeps slamming, opening and slamming. So I get up, and I'm only about 8 years old, 7, 8 years old at the time, and just as soon as I get to the door, these big hands grab me and pick me up and throw me on the couch. It was one of the teenagers there, and this gentleman's a pretty big guy, and he threw me on the couch between his sister and this other girl, and they're crying. Everybody's sitting on the floor just staring at my mom, my aunt, and this other lady at the kitchen table. My mom and my aunt are they got like this candle in the middle of the table, and they're trying to break their grip. The lady's just pretty much unresponsive. She's just staring. And they can't break the hold.
Yeah.
And everybody else was like kind of afraid to move, and all my aunt had to do was she could just break the light switch was literally right behind her shoulder. Well, while they're trying to break the hold, this, I'm going to say mist, but it kind of reminds you like cigarette smoke. It was coming out from the hallway that would go back to where the bathroom was, my mom and dad's room was, and we all saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just starts coming out this hallway, and it looked greenish, and people were like freaking. And Mom and my aunt, they're trying like crazy to break the hold. They can't break the hold, and one of the cabinet doors opened, closed. But again, we're in a house trailer, a lot of people there. It was like you see on TV where it opens violently and stuff, but it is opening and closing. And then this lady, who was unresponsive, just like in the movies, her head goes back, and in a deep voice, she goes, "Leave me alone." And that must have been enough for my aunt was able to break the hold. She reached behind, turned the light on, and the minute the light was on, that mist was gone. Now,
wow.
But you try to be, years later, reasonable. Could it just, once the light was on, you couldn't see it? Was it just one of those things? Something like that. It was real thin. This lady got up, stared at my mom for about 10 seconds, never said a word, and out the door she went.
Wow.
And so everybody's like trying to gather themselves and, trying to calm down, figure out what's going on. Mom leaned over to blow out the candle, and it wouldn't blow out. She would blow on it. The flame would literally like fold over. You could tell it was being, but it would not go out.
It wasn't one of them trick candles, was it?
Well, I don't think so, but because the way Mom and them was acting. So my aunt tried to blow it out. It wouldn't go out. So my mom picked it up, put it in the sink, turned the water on, run water over it. It went out. As soon as she pulled it out of the sink, it lit up again. So they just, I can't even remember what really happened. The only thing I do remember, people now got smoked some cigarettes or stuff like that on their porch, and it was like they're getting near in a house trailer, and a lot of people was getting warned. And then they wanted to start trying to levitate people. So Mom got this book, and the one guy who was there, and like I said, you don't work with her, but you know her. His sisters that works where we work, they start trying to levitate his body. I'm still on the couch. They're saying stuff's going on. They can feel the person lifting. But then our gravel driveway, we heard footsteps. And, everybody just stopped and they thought it was this lady coming back. So they got up and they looked outside. There's nobody there. And, little things like this continued to happen until we all just broke away. And, went about, our lives. Well, 3 days later, my mom and my dad are going to a restaurant. And from underneath a car, this lady who was the one whose head went back, she was literally hiding underneath a car. She come out from underneath the car and attacked my mom. And they got into a fight, stuff got broken up, and this lady just was mad at my mom. Well, we come to find out that this lady's boyfriend had died. Like, within these couple days, he had passed away, and it was one or two boyfriends that she had died.
So she was blaming her. I don't mean to cut you off, but she was blaming your mom for the boyfriend dying.
Well, yes, ostensibly that's what it was. But I come to find out, her one boy I am friends with, and I'd seen him sometime later. And he was apologizing for how his mom was acting. He said, but you gotta understand something. He said, something's going on at our house. Because they would wake up, any member of the family, by now it's just her and her two sons, and there'd be an apparition at the foot of the bed of an older lady. This is what he told me. And he said, this older lady, it was just taunting and haunting his mother. And she for years was a totally different person, and her and my mom never did patch up anything, and right. I think Mom should have taken stuff like that a bit more seriously, because a year or so later, my uncle owned a restaurant in this area, and Mom worked there as a cook, and I worked there doing dishes and stuff. I was young, but being he was family, I was allowed to do it. My job was just to scrape off the dishes that they brought in, run through the dishwasher, dip them in a sanitizer, and then put them on the shelf, and Mom and the other cook would put them away. But every Thursday, Mom, I don't know what it was about Thursdays, but we would hit a dead time around 6 o'clock. And from like 6 to 7, it would be dead. And then around 7 o'clock, people would start coming in again. I don't know why. I just remember that because that's when we would take our breaks. Well, Mom was reading cards for people. And there was one lady in particular. This lady was from Bellwood. She came there one night. Mom got this book and was reading the cards the way the book had told her to read the cards. And she's going about, telling this lady all this stuff, and then Mom just stops. And the lady's like, "What's wrong?" Mom's like, and she goes, "You can't stop now," basically arguing with her. And this, again, I remember this vividly. Mom said, "Well, your husband's going to die on Saturday." Not just that he was going to die, but she named the day according to what these cards had read. Okay, out of this set.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, that Saturday, her husband passed away. And he didn't have any, he was an older guy, but it wasn't like he was sick or having any kind of an issue.
Mm-hmm. Like pre-existing conditions.
Yeah. So, I can't remember if it was the next Thursday or eventually another Thursday. This lady showed up, wanted her cards read again. And Mom's like, "I don't want to do it." Not for her. She didn't seem to have any problems with anybody else. Most of the time, it was fun, but this lady in particular, Mom got nervous about. And she read the lady's card again, and it was another family member. Mom said, "They're going to die on Saturday." And sure enough, that family member passed away on Saturday.
So two Saturdays.
And I don't know if they were in a row. I can't remember how many weeks might have passed before that lady came back again. But she would come in on a Thursday, get her cards read, and so then Mom said she was done. But this lady come back again. And Mom's like, "I am not reading your cards." And she's like, "You have got to get me answers." This is what, because with these, the way when you was reading these cards, it wasn't only about what was going to happen, but you could find out why things would happen. There was like some sort of I hate to use the word, like a karma connection or something. That the way when Mom would read these cards to people, like she would know, like, well, you did, like, you cheated on your husband, which I don't remember that, but like she was able to find out things about these people, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, how did you know?" Well, the card said so. Well, that's what this lady wanted. She wanted answers. Well, I remember my aunt, not the same one that was at the trailer. She'd be like my great aunt. She told me, she goes, "Come on, you're gonna get away from this. I don't want you over here. I don't want you," because she was totally against it. She didn't like my mom doing this stuff. And so she took me away. Well, I could still hear where that her son was going to lose both of his legs. And sure enough, and I'm almost 100% sure it was in Bellwood, but it might have been in Tipton. But her son was in a vehicle that was hit by a train, like he was too close or whatever, and it caused him to lose both his legs.
Holy smokes.
Yes. So Mom took the book, and she said, "I'm done. I'm not messing with this book anymore." We had no idea where it was. And then we went into work that Saturday, or like the next. I remember it was a Saturday, and a guy had come in who was a friend of the lady whose son, was having all these problems, and he wanted answers. And Mom's like, "Absolutely not. I have that book hid. I'm never opening that book ever again." Well, it wasn't quite an argument, but it was heated, and they just wanted. If I remember correctly, he wanted to know if the family was under a curse. Well, Mom would not relent. She did not she would not read the cards or give any answers.
Hold on one second. Was your mom Native American?
Yes.
Okay, so I can see maybe there was a correlation there.
Yeah, our family on my mother's side It's Cree Indian.
Cree Indian. Okay.
Yes. So we left. There was not an argument, but the guy was upset. He's like, basically, I can't believe you're going to just leave us hanging.
Uh-huh.
And Mom's like, no, I'm not doing anything for anybody. So Dad was actually back there. He would come home on Saturdays and he'd stop out there and he would sit at the bar and talk to my uncle who owned the restaurant and stuff, and then we would go home. When we went home, we wasn't home 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and the fire trucks blew past our house. Now, to get to this restaurant, you had to be on this road, and they just went flying past our house out towards where the restaurant was. And then the phone rings, and I remember Mom yelling for Dad. She goes, Jim, the restaurant's on fire. And I'm like, what? So I go running downstairs, and it was, my uncle on the phone over at his daughter, because he lived above the restaurant. And he had like a little trailer park there that was part of where the restaurant was, and his daughter lived there. And he was over there, and he was calling Mom and said about it. So we went running out, and sure enough, it was on fire. And it was the kitchen area. And
I can see that.
Yeah, well, this is what's messed up. I remember I was sitting on the hood of the car. I had to stay back. And the firemen had got the fire out. The smoke and stuff was going. And I don't know, like, what kind of language, but I heard a fireman. They were in there investigating, and I heard the fireman go, no effing way. And he ended up coming out, and he's carrying this book. This book, where Mom shoved it. What they said started the fire was the exhaust fan, the big exhaust fan. You see in the restaurants on the side of the building, suck out all the cooking stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, Mom, there was a shelf way up high. That's where she had that book. That's where the fire started. The next day, when I was able to go in to see the damage, Shimer, these plates, these stacks of plates, the heat was so intense in there, it melted these stacks of plates together. Even out in the other room where the flames didn't get, the heat was so intense that the shades melted down over the light bulbs. Everything in that kitchen was destroyed except for that book. When they brought that book out, and the fireman was shown, he's leafing through the book. The cover, front and back cover, were just browned a little bit. You still read what the book was, but not a page. And that book was burnt. And that book was inches away from where that fire started. And I mean, refrigerators, freezers, the dishwashing machine, everything in there was destroyed. But that book was not destroyed. So Mom took that book, she wrapped it up, and we had filing cabinets at the house that you could lock. They were like these fireproof filing cabinets. Uh-huh. And she locked that book away, and I don't know whatever happened to it, but that book, I'm telling you, and, I will tell you someday, I'll tell you but I don't want to promote those books. Right. But I would imagine you can still get them, but that second book was not to be toyed with. I'm convinced of it. And, wow. So shortly after that, where we lived, now I never saw them, but they would sit out on the porch, and there's a big flat. When they were doing Interstate 99, my grandmother, where we lived, like on her property, she allowed them to dump this dirt, and it created like this big flat spot. It was a pretty nice place. The grass and everything grew in, but before that, it covered a junkyard that my grandfather had. But my mom would swear that she could see spirits running back and forth across that hill. And I think,
That's crazy.
yeah, I just think Mom might have invited something that she shouldn't have. You know,
Yeah.
I just don't think people should mess with stuff like this because, like I said, that lady, with what she lost and the friendship my mom lost with her, you know, that other lady, it just, nothing good come out of what she did.
It sounds like some kind of black magic, doesn't it?
Well,
maybe not to that extreme, but
I just think Mom believed in again, good call with the Native American thing, because she believed in all kinds of different spirits. And where, you know, me, if my dad would go out on the road, I would say a prayer. Mom would cite an incantation of some sort or a blessing, you know, the rock gods, the tree gods, you know, just keep them safe. And I just think she ended up getting in over her head. But
the Native Americans, they were always like more, I don't know if the spiritual is the word, but they're.
You're right. But see, my mom really wasn't trained in that. She was just going by, you know, maybe what she saw on TV or something, because it would be my grandmother's cousin was an Indian chief who would go to schools in the area and talk to people. He would come down. He was from up in New York. When he would come down, and he always stayed at my grandmother's house. He actually lived on a reservation, or I hate to use the word reservation, but I guess that's really what they are, like a community. And my dad and him, they got along really well. But I think what Mom did, she did out of ignorance, and not like with my uncle. He was very respectful. Mom was just kind of, you know, just didn't know what she was doing. And I think, you know, being uneducated in the proper way to do stuff like that, I think is what was her downfall.
And I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but it sounded like she was trying to get out of it. But the clients just kind of were just wanted to know more.
Well, the bad thing, you know, when the bad stuff would hit, she would want out of it. But when the good stuff would hit, you know, hey, you're going to get pregnant, or you're going to do this, you know, everything with that book. I think, you know, not everything was bad. So when she would do stuff like that, then it would puff her up and she'd want to keep going. Then there would be that brick wall, or that particular lady that had those devastating and consequences. Again, like I said, some of the stuff that we would see, it was pretty. Like I said, I was a kid, but I do know I saw that mist. I was there when that fireman brought that book out, and I know my mom, you know, kept that book as close to her as possible. But it was.
That's a crazy story. You know, how does something not burn? That's made out of paper.
Yep. And like you said, I swear I was there. I heard the fireman say it. I heard him come out and show the people. And Mom went up and said, "That's my book." Now the bag and stuff that it was in was gone, but the book, and that's what they were marveling at. How did this not burn?
Well, it sounds like there's some kind of other entity or whatever that refused to let that book die.
Yeah, there's something,
because it can't be explained rationally.
Yeah, and like I said, I just think I think that particular book is dangerous. Just like with the Ouija boards, I think they're dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
they're meant to be a game. But yeah, I just think Mom bit off more than she could chew a couple of times, and it was there were some pretty scary experiences.
Yeah, I knew a guy years ago. He had a book. I'm not going to say the name of it either, but it was one of Anton LaVey's books. I'll just leave it at that. And he got in a little too deep too. I mean, I know it sounds going to sound crazy, but he tried to burn that. He tried to burn that Bible, and he had a hard time getting it to burn for whatever reason.
Well, I've heard that about sometime with some of these Ouija boards. When people try to burn them, they won't burn. I don't know if that's true. I don't mess with them.
I don't even touch Ouija boards. I want no part of them.
Yeah, like I said, I can't remember what the other two, because it was a 3-name series. So each book could have been one part of the name, but it was messed up. Like I said, I'll never forget how, the look on that lady's face when she left, and then finding out. And I thought she had passed. About a year ago, I'd met her, and she remembered who I was. Of course, our town ain't that big, but she seems better now. But the stories I used to hear years ago, it was, she wasn't a very pleasant person. So hopefully this apparition or whatever that her boy talked about, hopefully it's gone.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's a positive one. So, I mean, which we know there's ways to get rid of entities like that, calling in the right people and saging and cleansing and maybe calling in, clergy and stuff. But I would hope that if they had an issue removing the entity, that they would have went one of those routes.
Well, I know they moved from the house where it was happening. That much I do know. But I don't know. I never brought it up again to my friend, and we just kind of let it. You're younger and you're thinking, I don't want to hear about people appearing at the foot of my bed unless they got a pizza.
Unless it's a delivery driver. Dude.
Sure, you're at the right address.
Well, now
one of these days, Summer, we'll meet up and I'll take you to some of these places and let you see. Because the restaurant, what used to be a restaurant, is now an apartment complex, and I can show you, where that fire took place. Show you the hill where Mom said she always saw spirits running.
Yeah, that's definitely still intact from what I remember.
Yes. And, there was something else. I can't really remember right now. There was something else I wanted to tell you, but it slipped my mind.
Do you remember, I know this probably isn't relevant, but do you remember the name of the fire company that put the fire out by chance?
Yes.
Was it the Hookies?
It was all of them. It was Bald Eagle, Hookies, Neptunes, Citizens.
So it was a combined effort.
Yes. And I think that's what that ultimately saved the restaurant, because everybody showed up and they was able to hold it to the kitchen, not so much the heat damage, because we worked on it for a couple months, cleaning and getting things, because he did open back up again. But I think that's eventually what saved it was there. I mean, that parking lot was full of fire equipment, ambulances, police. So,
I'd imagine. And what did they determine caused the fire? Do you recall? Or
the exhaust fan had a short in it. Now,
okay.
Mom, Mom being Mom, thinks the book caused it. I don't think the book caused it. I think the fan just shorted out. but the wooden shelves and everything that was that all burnt, but that book did not burn.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody explains that rationally.
Yeah, when you can hear a fireman yell that, you're like, what the? No effing way.
So everything was destroyed in the restaurant, in the kitchen.
In that kitchen, it was completely black. Stuff was melted. The countertops were burned away. The refrigerators, the freezers, everything destroyed. And then out through the restaurant, like you said, the heat was there. The lamps, the shades, melted down over the bulbs. The seats melted. Your plates and stuff and I actually have, even to this day, I actually have 2 of the old plates that they used at the restaurant, because we bring stuff home every once in a while and we're supposed to take the plates back, but I still have 2 of the plates that my uncle used at his restaurant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're thick, heavy duty glass plates.
Oh, glass plates, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they weren't no one plastic, because his restaurant was, I'm not going to say upscale, but it was above, it was higher than, not like prissy people, but it was a nice restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you mind sharing the name of the restaurant, or, I mean, if you don't, that's completely okay.
It was the Coach Light restaurant in Bald Eagle.
The Coach Light? Yeah, I tell you what, Jimmy, every time you tell a story, it's always the same, so.
Well, like I said, it just, I remember bits and pieces, and it just, like I said, the things I witnessed myself, I remember, and you know how it is, time passes and you can augment something or diminish it, but I remember that lady getting told about her family members dying and her son losing his legs. I remember that night vividly. These are the ones that are vivid memories. But like I said, I never saw spirits run across that hill, but my mom swore she did. And I don't know if she had any reason to lie, or maybe she was. Maybe this was all a game to her, but I don't think that was a trick candle. Because I don't think, even if they would have planned, like Mom and my aunt and that other lady would have planned on putting on this show for all these kids, why would that lady a couple days later jump my mom, literally hide underneath the car and jump my mom? Well, at least that's what Mom and Dad told me, because when they came home, Dad was mad. He was going to go after her significant other until we found out he was dead. And so, I just, that's what makes me think that it wasn't an act.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
what's that?
You think she could have been possessed momentarily for a little bit?
Or tormented, or yeah, possessed, possibly. I don't know. Like I said, there was a mist, cloud, whatever you want to call it. There was something hovering above her that you could see when the lights were off and the candle was on. And one thing I forgot to say, the clock that was on the wall, my dad had got, because this is another reason why people said it might have been green. It was a beer clock, and I believe it was a Schmidt's clock, but it didn't have numbers on it. Each number, like where the number would be, like 1, 2, or 3, was another, like a color. And there's like red, green, yellow, blue. You would go around, and that's what some of them thought. Well, it could have been green because of the green light coming off of that clock. But like other people said, there was other colors coming off that clock. Why did it pick green? And I know when my aunt turned that light on, that cloud was gone. And did it end up entering that lady? I have no idea. Or did it just just follow her or something. I mean, you see orbs and stuff in your investigations, things that you can't really see with the naked eye. Some of your equipment will pick up. Could that have been what happened there? I have no idea. I just know that she changed dramatically, and her boy told me, you got to understand, there's this lady that keeps appearing at the bottom of her bed, an older lady. So,
and that's all he ever said about the older lady. He never said that she was like a negative energy, negative spirit. There was nothing else.
I don't remember him saying that exactly, but that was a connotation that I got, because whoever it was scaring her, was scaring his mom and scaring them. And like I said, I know I can show you the house where they lived, where this all took place. But I don't know where they moved to. But I do know where they lived when this was, like, when her boyfriends died. And where they ended up moving out of.
Now, if they moved out of the area, or if they just like moved out of that home. Because if I was them, I might move out of the area.
That I couldn't tell you. If they did move out of the area, like I said, all contact between Mom and this lady was lost. And when I talked to the boy, they were still living there. But eventually, they had moved. But I could be wrong, because like I said, that lady I didn't think was still alive, and she is. And I don't know if his mother's still alive, but I would imagine, unless he had other health complications or anything, let me see, I would have been, at the coach level, I probably would have been about 10 or 11 when I started there. And he was probably 17 or 18. So he would be probably around 68 or so if he's still alive.
Well, it's good to know that your mom didn't predict his death. She just predicted that he would be in an accident.
Yeah, that he was going to lose his legs. She said he was going to lose his legs.
That's very specific, too.
It is. That's what I'm saying. The way, this wasn't your tradition. Well, according to what she was saying, like when she would tell people, this isn't your traditional card reading. This is another way of reading cards, and she would keep that book. That book would give her step-by-step instructions as to how to do it, and then, if this card turned up, and help her evaluate what the sequence meant.
Wow. The power of the cards. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right for him, my faith. I don't, as the Bible talks about, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the powers, principalities, and the rulers of the heavens and of the dark. So it's a spiritual battle is what we face. And it's a spiritual good versus evil. Like I said, I don't mind watching, when people do it and stuff, but I would worry about dragging something back to the house. What do they call it? An attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would worry about.
Right.
And especially since my family has a history of delving into the dark arts, as it were. I'm not going to be a part of that.